the mention of his name, it gives me chills. I can remember the exact moment that Jesus came into my life. He simply knelt down and began writing in the sand. He told a crowd of my accusers, if their lives were without sin, then cast the first stone. And then I had to watch that same man be accused, judged, and sentenced to death. Jesus was innocent. He had done no wrong. If anything, I should have been the one accused. I should have been the one sentenced. I was the sinner, not him. You see, I was a worthless woman, only good for my looks and whatever kind of service I could offer a man who wanted my temporary company. In order for you to understand, we have to go back to that day that I mentioned. You see, on that day, I was in the midst of one of my encounters when a group of men came in and threw me in the streets. They proceeded to drag me through the streets, and I could only imagine the fate that awaited me. I mean, I was caught in the act of adultery. The law alone called for me to be stoned to death. I knew that day I was finally going to pay for my lifetime of sin. We arrived at the temple and they threw me at the feet of this man, and that man was Jesus. He didn't condemn me. Nor did he look at me with hate or disgust like most men did. Instead, he looked at me with compassion and mercy. No man had ever looked at me that way before. Every man I'd ever known only wanted to use me. Looking back, those religious leaders were so angry at Jesus. He was supposed to condemn me, not let me go. I'm so grateful. Was it my fault? Was it because Jesus had mercy on me and showed me love I had never known? Did I cause this? Am I the reason that Jesus had to die? Am I guilty?
Before I gave my life over to God. When I say horrible, that's actually an understatement. What started out as one night, it became my lifestyle. I was just a little girl when I was forced to fend for myself. My father wasn't around, and my mom, let's just say she was there. But she was never there, at least not for me. Every night I'd watch men go in and out of our house at all hours of the night. At the time, I actually thought that was normal. My whole life, that's all I ever knew. So, when I was about 15, maybe 16, I found myself in the exact same place as my mother. You'd think she'd try to stop me. But no, she actually encouraged my promiscuous ways. As long as I was bringing in the money to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table, she didn't care. after man, it was always the same. They'd get what they want from me and then they would just leave. They would just leave. But I'm not here for any of you to feel sorry for me. I'm not here for that. I'm here to tell you how good God has been to me. He took me from nowhere and brought me here. I remember one morning, I was driving by this church. I passed it all the time. But for some reason, this one time was different. I remember the sign outside. It had read, "Do you want a new life?" Of course I wanted a new life. I was so tired of mine. I hated my life, and I just didn't know what to do to change it. I felt so lost. I didn't know what to do, so I just went in. Something told me to just go in. The choir was singing when I walked in. They were so amazing. And the message, it was as if the guy knew me. He was preaching about God's grace. And at that point, I was certain that God's grace was not for me. I was just too dirty and used up and worthless. I was nothing. And Jesus, He's everything. He couldn't possibly have wanted me. He would turn away just like everybody else in my life did. But He didn't. I must have cried the entire service. The more the pastor kept talking about Jesus, the more I wanted to know Him. But would He want to know me? I had to give it a try. I didn't have anything to lose. My life was such a crazy mess. And if Jesus could fix it, I was going to give Him a chance. And all it took was just a step. One step. Because He took care of the rest. Here today, delivered from my life of sin, because Jesus died for me. I would not have blamed Him if He had turned away from me, because I was guilty. But His love for me and Him dying for me is the reason I am standing here alive today.